Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the HumanizeHer podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lockheimer.
And I'm your co-host, Elizabeth.
Today, we are speaking with Telle Whitney, the co-founder of the Grace Hopper Celebration, which is one of the largest conferences for women in computing. She has a wealth of experience working in industry and has a background in computer science, and now author. Let's dive in. Welcome to HumanizeHer. Yeah, Telle, thank you so much for saying yes again. I don't know how many times we've met you, but
well,
plenty
it's
of
very
times.
exciting. I mean, what you're trying to do, I support wholeheartedly. So anything that I can do to help.
Yeah, and it's interesting to branch out of tech because I think my background has always been in tech, but it's like, let's open it up to different segments. Women are doing all sorts of different things and pivoting, and we want to celebrate, all of that. So, super excited.
So early days.
Yes.
You are, I'm just going to call you out right now, Erica. She's a fangirl of you big time.
I'm
so
trying
she's
to
told me the
actually
stories.
control myself right now. Even though I've met Telle multiple times, but in the early days, I remember going to the Grace Hopper conference for the first time. I think it was in 2012. And you were up on stage. I saw you on the conference, halls, and I was just starstruck. And then first of all, going to a conference like that and coming from a company when you're like one of few, and then walking into that amazing auditorium, we got this, okay.
Yeah.
And just seeing so many women, it was like a sense of belonging. And I remember after you took stage and then I saw you on the conference halls, where just walking around talking to everybody, I was like, should I go and talk to her? I don't know. I do. I have a picture. I'll show it to you. I think I've shown it to you before.
You've shown it to me.
Yeah, we'll show you all too.
I got a snap.
We'll pop it up
we'll
here.
pop it up on the on the screen. But you were just like so welcoming, and then after that, we'll get into different stages of how we got to know you better, and we both were in a book. Thank goodness from Pratima, and that's how all of a sudden we were on panels, and now we're here today. So it's just weird to be from a state of to now here, but I'm still so thank you for coming. But we would love to know a little bit more about the Grace Hopper conference, and how did it start, and how did you actually pivot to start leading it?
Yeah.
Because you took over in 2002. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, okay. So the Grace Hopper Conference was founded in 1994. And, if you sort of think back in the past, I had moved to Silicon Valley with this dream of really innovation and contributing to the next generation of products. At the time, my background is chip design. And so I came there to do that work, and I was very excited about contributing to the future of technology. But I was one of a very few women. And I had been particularly aware of that at Caltech. It was 13% women when I was in graduate school. And so I desperately set out to meet other women when I moved to Silicon Valley. One of the people I met pretty early on was Anita. And so she and I became very close friends. And we had this idea about how do you create a place where you celebrate the achievements of women. The ideas came from a lot of different places. At the time, there was something called the Computing Research Association, which a lot of, at least research institutions, still belong to. And they had some programs that had to do with focusing on women. Okay. And so it was with CRA that we set out to do this. It was great because everybody we asked to speak there said yes.
Mm-hmm.
The National Science Foundation had scholarships for students that first time. And we were very much focused on celebrating the achievements of women, not so much about talking about the problems of being a woman in technology. And that's really important. The first one, we were modestly financially successful. It was all volunteer. It was held in 1994 with about 500 people.
Wow.
Mostly women. There were a few men.
Oh, even back then? Wow,
allies.
you got an allies early on. I'm like, you let them in.
How many? How many were there?
About 5, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Eric Roberts, if you know him from Stanford, was one of the people that was
pretty
there.
Cool. I did not know that.
And there were a few others. Every so often I meet somebody that says, I was at the first Grace Hopper. I think Ed Lazowska, maybe. from University of Washington.
Okay.
And so it was successful. Everything about it was successful. We stayed volunteer run from the very first time. So we held one in 1997, and then Anita decided to found a nonprofit. At the time, I was at a chip startup. I was at something called Malleable Technologies that created this next generation of products for in chips, and she started this nonprofit. Anita was diagnosed with brain cancer shortly after she founded the institute, and so it wasn't financially viable early on, and so that's when I stepped in 2002, and it was in dire straits. I mean, we really didn't know if we had enough money to survive for a year. I don't think my board really thought that we would survive, but we gave it a good shot, and she passed away shortly thereafter in 2003, and it was tough at the beginning. I mean, I remember where Google had committed to being a sponsor for one of our events, and we asked them to give us the money so that we could make payroll. I mean, it was really tough at the beginning, but it grew. It wasn't just Grace Hopper that we did. We did a number of other things, but Grace Hopper found its niche, and I can talk about a little bit about why I think it really was successful.
Yeah. I'm curious.
We have so many questions. Go ahead.
I'm curious about kind of your path into taking over and leading the Anita Borg Institute. So you had said you were working at a company doing your microchips, right? Mm-hmm. And she was founding Anita Borg. Were you involved with the founding of it as well?
Yeah.
So So I'm not a founder, I should say. I'm of the Anita Borg Institute. I was the founding CEO.
Okay, got it.
And so in terms of thinking about that, that's really what it was.
Okay.
So I was involved as an advisor to Anita from the very beginning.
You were close friends?
We were very close friends. And, I mean, she and I went on a backpacking trip in Hetchy, which is near Yosemite, when I was getting married. I mean, we did a lot of things together.
They're close.
That's great.
So I really, she couldn't continue. Yeah. And I had, the company I was at had been sold to PMC Sierra. So I was taking a break and trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up.
So what I'm curious also about the break side of the career break side. So how many years were you already working in the chip manufacturer before this break situation that you decided to do?
I was 20 something. No, probably more like 15.
15 years. You already had your career, and then that you were well established, and then you decided to take a break.
Well, we were sold, but to PMC Sierra.
Okay.
So the startup I was at was sold. I was very involved with the integration.
Got it.
It was very common during startups. After a while, it was just time for me to leave. So I took really what I thought was a 6-month break, and then I started doing some consulting work, and part of what I did was help Anita at that time. So she was sick. She was ill at that point, and it didn't really have its footing. In fact, the one program they had started at that point didn't really work out. So financially, the thing about nonprofits is you always have to find the business model to be able to support the ideas, and that's something that many entrepreneurs that are really passionate about creating a nonprofit don't realize. You have to find something that allows you to be sustainable.
You need the capital. You need the capital.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So she came to you, obviously, as a close friend and confidant, somebody that was an advisor to her that she knew could spearhead this effort and carry the torch forward when she found out she was ill. So how was that conversation of, hey, Telle, can you come be the CEO of this foundation? Was that a no-brainer for you? Was it scary? Did you have hesitation?
Yeah, you say yes right away and just go for it.
I didn't actually. So first of all, she and I talked, but it was the board that asked me to step in as the CEO, and I said no. I did. I mean, my entire view of myself was as the technologist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was really important to me, and so taking this left turn was not something I was interested in. I came home and I thought about it, and I remember talking to my husband saying, I mean, I could really make a difference here. I could make a difference with people. And so I said yes.
Did he help influence that? Was he like a big pusher for you to do this? Or were you leaning towards saying yes after your conversation? He kind of nudged you.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband is very supportive of what I do. That's what, I think that one of the most important career decisions you can make is who you partner with.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes
And
a lot
also
of sense.
one of the worst decisions that you can make also.
I've seen it both ways.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I have seen it both ways. And so he didn't push me or say no. He just listened and supported my decision to do this because it was a big change.
It's a huge. I
Yeah.
love. It's a huge change, and I'm also curious. Like, it is your identity. You were in tech, working in tech for so long. So, how did you even struggle with that emotion? You made the decision. You're like, I'm going to pivot. But how did it actually feel after you made that decision? Like, hey, Telle, what do you do? Whereas before you had your pitch, right, and you did all these other things. I'm just curious how that conversation with yourself and others went.
Well, like I said, I mean, my whole identity was as a technologist, and so it was tough at the beginning. One of the things that has always helped me is I know that every decision you make, it's not like you can't make a new decision in a year or two. So you can start down a path, and then you can course correct.
Yeah, pivot.
That's a good point.
I mean, what I've learned about myself over time is that I'm an entrepreneur. Everything about me, I'm an entrepreneur. And so the two startups I was involved in, I started from the very, very early on. I mean, at Malleable, I was employee number 4. Wow. And we created the entire engineering team. I mean, that's what I did. And we had nothing. And at first we didn't even have enough money beyond 6 months. Wow. So going to the Anita Borg Institute in those early days I was doing what I was really good at, which was starting things from scratch. Even scary. I mean, it was incredibly scary. I think that I felt a sense of moral obligation
to Anita.
That was hard. I mean, it meant that I felt like I couldn't fail, and we were failing. I mean, we didn't have money. One of my first decisions as the CEO was to lay a fair part of the staff off.
Wow.
And for the rest of us that stayed, to cut our salaries.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we really weren't sure how we were going to move forward. ACM, I was involved with the leadership of ACM at the time. That's the Professional Society for the Computing Professional. And in those early days, they helped out. They actually helped out during a very critical period. Because they were interested in the Grace Hopper celebration, they co-presented for many years the conference.
So it was like a co-sponsorship type of thing. Okay. And did they provide you funding for your other efforts outside of GHC, or was that
No,
their
just
sole?
that one. No, well, they gave us some money one time. And yes, not continuing on that. But they had a presence. And I mean, remember who our audience was. It was good for them to be seen as being part of the conference, and because they were the premier technical society.
Recognizable for your attendees and people who are involved.
It's good for their brand as well, and their company and everything they do. So then you were able to get the sponsorship. You're able to, you made some business decisions and layoffs and everything, but how did you make the Grace Hopper sustainable, the conference? And I mean, is it, if you can explain the model.
Very early on, I mean, we broke even. And so the first thing we did was we moved the conference to every year, because at the time, early on, it was every other year. And
it was every other. I was just assume it's always been every year.
No, it was every other year.
Wow.
Especially when it was a volunteer program, and then we moved it to every year. We students always came from the very early conference. Students came, and academic institutions provided scholarships for their students to attend the conference. And so the companies who originally supported us because they were being altruistic about having more women started to recognize that it was a great place to recruit.
Wow.
And so they started to recruit initially pretty informally, but then as the conference grew, it became much more part of their recruiting strategy. And they sent I mean, they sent both their recruiters, but the best companies who were successful in recruiting also started sending more of the women who worked in their companies. And if you look at how the conference grew, that's really how it grew. More and more academic institutions sent their students. More and more companies sent some of their women, especially early in their career at the companies. And it became part of their retention strategy. And then it took on a life of its own. It just, I mean, if you look at the attendance of Grace Hopper, it's a kind of classic hockey stick.
Yeah.
You know, it grew and grew and grew, and then all of a sudden it took off. And those are the two factors.
Yeah.
Isn't it about like, what, 25,000
or
attendees?
something.
Yeah, I
a year
think it's
now?
closer to 30.
30 now? Wow.
I don't know, but I think it's between 25 and 30.
And I can vouch as far as like sponsorship, you know, being at LinkedIn for so many years. I mean, we didn't have a booth the first time we went there. We're like, okay, now we have to show up and show up big time. And we created a booth year after year, and it got bigger and bigger. We started sending all the women in leadership positions there. Also male allies. I mean, we owned the floor in so many ways, and it was a recruiting strategy. It's like, this is where you're going to find some of the top talent, and it's all going to be centered, and it's going to be worth your time. And we hired so many folks from the Grace
many
Hopper.
success stories from that.
So great.
And
Yeah.
just the exhibit hall itself, you can feel the energy
so
and all the
amazing.
young students that are there with their bright eyes and seeing all these companies they dream of working for, but also companies that are doing cool stuff they never heard about before. And then it piques their interest. So they want to learn more, and just all around an amazing feeling.
Yeah. And also just the celebration. There'd be long nights. We just hang out and have a good time. So I think it served two purposes. So it was great.
Yes, I mean, and if you talk to the students, many of the times the reason they actually talk to a particular company is because they talked to a young woman who was a few years ahead of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what made a difference. So one of my real passions was that they first, I mean, companies came, they wanted to recruit, and I think that's great. And they started to send many of their women to attend. And those women at many of the companies bonded with each other. I mean, you hear stories of, you know, women coming from Microsoft or Google or LinkedIn or other places, and they got to know women working in their company.
Absolutely.
In all these different locations, and those bonds stayed.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I really felt was effective was the Technical Executive Forum, where more and more of the companies would also send their engineering executives, and they were mostly men. And there's a lot of men that are very earnest about creating an inclusive culture, but they're not that comfortable. I mean, we typically find people that look like us as you try and mentor and sponsor the next generation. And so being able to talk to their peers in a sea of women was a really profound experience. And I do think that at least we had made some inroads into being able to impact the culture at the companies. And what does this look like? And, you know, what does it look like when all your women are coming to the conference?
I remember going to the Tech Exec Forum a few times, and you're absolutely right. And I think, you know, men want to be those sponsors and help, but sometimes they just don't know how. So we create those intimate conversations, that environment, and like, hey, how can I bring this back to my company? And it's a learning session. It really, really is. And so I think that was a brilliant thing that you added to the conference for sure. So
Yeah, and it boosted allyship like
It did.
tremendously because,
Yeah.
like you said, men in those positions don't generally know how to get started. They want to be inclusive, but you want to do it in the right way. You know, you don't want to be tone deaf kind of when it comes to these things. And so bringing them into the conversation, it has been successful. I mean, I know with our work with women in tech at LinkedIn, we have a strong allyship group that's there and present at our events.
they wear women in tech shirts, you know.
They're
so-
excited, like purple, whatever color we want
we
them
get
to
to
wear.
choose.
They're all about it.
And it's women fitting.
So, you know, we still have a lot of work to do,
Yeah. Oh, for
obviously,
sure.
of changing those numbers. And I think we're on the right path. But
And I have come to believe, this is perhaps changing the subject a bit,
for
but
it.
that's fine.
that it's great to hire all these women, but that's in order for us to change the culture of technology, you have to figure out how to and have an inclusive culture.
Yep.
And the male executives that are leading most of these engineering teams I mean, they need to understand not only how to hire more women on their team, but how to make sure that they're given opportunities.
Investing.
So that they can, well, investing in them, but also giving them the chance to take on leadership roles. And I think that, Erica, you're a great example. I mean, you said, I want to take on this leadership role. And they said yes. I mean, as I recall, they even pushed back a little bit at the beginning. And
it wasn't an easy yes. You got to fight for it, fight for it, and ask for it. But I mean, then I started realizing like other people, like including men, like they will ask for it, and it's almost like if we got to do it too, or else how do they know that you even are thinking about it or you want to do it? Right. You know, you got to plant that seed. But I 100% agree with you that, you know, hiring is one thing, but retaining, getting that sponsorship, getting in positions, and getting that career growth is really the end game. Yeah. And if you don't do that, it doesn't matter. It's like all those efforts, like why did you do it? Just to look good? Actually, I want to have a provocative question here.
Okay. Ooh, I'm excited.
Because, you know, I've been in the industry for 25 plus years in tech and my background, and, you know, it hasn't been an easy world. But I want to know your view on, you know, the tech layoffs are huge right now. And I remember there, you know, when times are good, you know, the honeymoon phase of the tech industry, it's like, you know, diversity, inclusion, and belonging is important. Recruiting women in tech, getting our numbers. I mean, I know certain phases, single digits, and then getting it up to 25%. You're like, yay, celebrating. Tech layoffs happen. And if I read one more headline that says we got rid of this diversity program, or that, you know, it's heartening. It hurts, honestly, so much. It's like we've made all this progress. It absolutely feels like we're going backwards. And I'm curious to see what the numbers are now post all that. And then not let alone women, or, you know, think about Black women, or, you know, Latina. It's like, I can imagine like how much impact there is. So I'm just curious, how are you feeling in this new wave of where, you know, the tech industry is going with all the layoffs and what this passion that you care about?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it settles out. I mean, like you, I've been in the tech industry for a very long time. And hiring ebbs and flows. I mean, there have been layoffs in the past. I mean, I remember the 2008. It was catastrophic for many companies as they let go large teams. Or 2001, which is when,
.com days.
the .com bust, where things were, I mean, really, there was huge changes. So I do think that this layoffs is just part of the ebbing and flowing. I mean, tech companies in particular hired a lot over the pandemic, and to some degree, they're really just adjusting to the new world. And they are also, I mean, they're using this as an excuse to hire in areas that they want to invest in the future. I understand this. I mean, it's not good that they're getting rid of DEI, but I'm less convinced that specific DEI programs are really how we change our future. I mean, I think that the programs, sometimes the diversity and inclusion programs can be high cost, and they can be on the side. They aren't part of the people who are creating the next generation of leaders. And I do think that focusing, once again, on figuring out how to create an inclusive view of the leadership of tomorrow is really what's critical. And it's probably not necessarily going to be the DEI folks in HR. It's going to be the executive leaders that really take that into their heart and realize that if they look towards the products of their future, they need to make sure that they have an inclusive landscape.
Right.
And so that's really what's most important.
Got it.
And so, I mean, LinkedIn, you were at LinkedIn for many years. And I do think that the culture of LinkedIn was inclusive, and that many of the executive leaders there feel inclusion in their soul. And that's really how they're going to create the next generation of leaders. What I'm more dismayed about is with AI, it's like all of a sudden everybody's excited about AI, and there has been less talk about ensuring that there is a diverse set of leaders in that space. I mean, AI, the data that it uses, the the way that we think about AI in the future, we need to make sure that people, women, all kinds of different people are part of the creation of the technology, as well as the ethics and some of the responsible AI, which I think is really important. But it's like, I don't know, you hear the coverage in the media and they've just thrown this idea of having a lot of different people speak on behalf of AI, and they get focused on the male leaders who are doing that. So that worries me more.
True. That's a good point. I mean, and you think about AI, I mean, all these algorithms, and if it's built, not by a diverse set of folks, like to reverse engineer all that is just going to take decades. So it's so much work. So I think that's an excellent point.
Right.
But,
I mean, I think there was a company that that had a recruiting platform, and they used all this data with AI, and it was all men that were being hired. So when they were looking at future employees, it became discriminatory, and they actually didn't continue with that product. And that, I mean, it's harder to change the future when you're basing so much on the past,
right,
with the data of AI.
It's just easier to discontinue than to try to fix it at that point, right?
No, that's absolutely true. Wow. Absolutely true. And I remember, early days of our recruiter product for LinkedIn. I mean, AI it's not like AI is new. It's been around for a long time. But if you look at, say, for instance, you're looking for talent and there's maybe, 30% women, the other 70% men, but that first page of results when you're looking for those candidates, if you're not paying attention to that same ratio split on that same first page, guess what? You're just like impacting the way that people hire 100%. And so there was a time that we didn't actually pay attention to those algorithms, and then they did. And now, I mean, it's so important, but you're right. It has to be nested in how you build.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So true.
I want to take a step back with you from the beginning days of Telle as a kid. Like, everybody has a dream. I wanted to be a singer when I was
She is a singer, though. Let's be clear.
Singer also, which checked the box, so that feels good. But what did you want to be when you grew up, and when did you decide that computing made sense for you and that's where your passion lived?
How did you even get there?
Sure. I mean, I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. I mean, and my family is historically from Salt Lake City. I mean, for years, generations. I moved to Southern California when I was 7. My parents were divorced, and I really consider myself from California. I grew up in Southern California, and I was very tied to it. My mother passed away when I was 15.
Oh, wow.
And so which was very difficult. I mean, it was probably one of the most difficult things that have impacted my life. And I moved back to Salt Lake City to live with my father and stepmother at that time. I did not dream of becoming a computer scientist. In fact, in high school, I was very interested in theater. But I went to the University of Utah, and I was deeply committed to supporting myself. Financially, I wanted to study something where I could actually support myself. I was not going to be dependent on somebody else. That was probably the most important piece.
I love that.
Is that something your dad instilled in you, or just,
or you saw growing up with your mom being financially independent? And
she was not financially independent.
Yeah.
So my father supported us as a family. I think that's probably where it came from.
That makes sense.
Is that she eventually went back and studied to become a teacher, but then she got sick. And so she never really taught. She did some interning, but she didn't ever teach. I think that dependence on my father was something that, as a young child, unconsciously at least, really fed me. So I went to the University of Utah, which is a large public university, and so many people have the chance to go to a large public university. I think you went to San Jose State.
Chico State over here.
Chico State. Yeah, there we go. So, and it's, I work with so many companies that just go to the Ivy League.
Yeah.
And I think that's not, there's so many people that come through those great public schools. And University of Utah had a great reputation. It was one of the first schools to offer computer science. It was part of that initial group that came out of the ARPANET and things like that, where they studied computer science. I didn't know anything about computer science. I studied theater. I tried for politics, and I almost dropped out. And I took an interest test where programming came out really high, and I took a class.
What was the first programming class that you took?
It was COBOL. It's funny, I didn't know enough. There was a COBOL and Fortran, and I mean, I should have taken the Fortran. But these were the days of the large card decks, and you turned them in, and you got listings. I mean, it was pretty crazy, but I loved it. I mean, from the moment I walked into the class, I knew that I had found my home, and I did really well. I mean, I didn't do so well in some of the other earlier subjects, but I did really well in computer science. Also, I had a faculty member who I took a class from him, a graphics class, and he showed interest in me and in my future. I had never thought of going to graduate school, but he introduced me to a colleague of his who's considered by many to be the father of computer graphics, a man named Ivan Sutherland. And he had co-founded the department at Caltech. And so I, with Rich's help, the faculty member at University of Utah, I applied and I got in.
Wow. Was he a mentor to you or more of a sponsor?
I mean, I consider him, Rich was a sponsor because he helped encourage me to do this, something I had never really considered. And he introduced me to Ivan. What I learned actually just about a month or so ago is that Ivan told him he wouldn't come and speak unless he was introduced to the best student there. So,
oh wow! And you were the best student,
yes. So Rich introduced me to Ivan.
That is so great. Yeah. Wow! Congratulations! And also, what was the classroom like? And how were you the only woman in the?
There was women around. I mean,
okay.
I was so excited to find computer science. I wasn't really paying attention to the landscape. Like many women who are studying computing, they feel like they're just one of many. They don't really want to be called out.
Yeah.
The person who taught the COBOL class was a woman.
Oh,
there
so
was
cool.
other woman who was in graduate school there. In fact, I just exchanged some email. She lives up near Seattle. And so there was women around, and I was enjoying what I was doing, so I just didn't pay attention. When I got to Caltech, I was very aware of being one of very few women. I mean, it's 13% women, and the people around just were not used to being around women, and it was not that comfortable. So and that's why when I moved to Silicon Valley, I really tried hard to meet some women, and that's how I met Anita.
Made it a point.
I made it a point.
Find your community and build your community, and you are the person who people look to on what it takes to build a successful community.
Icon.
So congratulations.
I know, you did it. Made it happen.
So
You made sure you created the environment you wanted, which is awesome in a massive way.
You redefined success on your own terms.
Yeah.
And
did a pivot. Yeah. So
you know what's interesting too is earlier you were talking about how you're entrepreneurial by nature. And I went to school for business administration, so have a degree in small business management and entrepreneurship. So I've always had kind of the itch for that and the knack for that. And it's always excited me about the opportunity. But the thing that I've found hard, which I think many do, is finding the thing you want to do and create as an entrepreneur. Because it can be scary, but also you want to do something you enjoy. So how has that been? Because you went from computer scientist, taking your entrepreneurial nature, migrating to CEO.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, I never sat down and said, I want to start a company. I really found places to invest in, and by invest in, I mean with myself. I mean, so I moved to Silicon Valley, and my PhD thesis advisor is a man named Carver Mead, who, I mean, he and Ivan started the department at Caltech, and he is considered by most to be the father of VLSI, which is the chips. And so he introduced me to the person who founded the first semiconductor company that I worked at, was a startup. And so he opened his network, and that's how I found what I wanted to do. And I felt like I could contribute. I mean, the work I was doing there was very much based on the work that I did in graduate school. Anita and I were also friends, and so we were talking about how do you create a movement, or how do you create an environment for women to come together. And so I found that. For a long time, I thought of it as my side gig, my side hustle. I was involved with Grace Hopper from the very get-go, but it was my side hustle. Yeah. And the decision, I was VP of engineering at Malleable Technology, so I had already stepped into a leadership role, and I was aware that the next step would be as CEO, and but the chance to go to what was at the time in the Institute for Women in Technology fell into my lap. The difference is, and this is what is what I say to a lot of people, is I said yes. I didn't say yes at first. I said no.
We remember that. You said no, very firmly no.
But eventually I said yes. And so I took on this Amoebus, this organization that had no business model, had no future. And I created a strategy and an operations that could support it. And then we grew it. So part of what I am able to do is do whatever it takes to be successful. As an entrepreneur, one of the things I've over the years, I've hired people that come from large corporations, and they struggle sometimes at startups because there's no infrastructure.
No support, nothing. Everything else, big company, everything's like done for you. Very different. Yeah.
And you're plugging into this, you've got a CRM, or you've got a financial system. You've got all these systems that you can use. And so some people rise to the occasion and say, yes, I can change this. Some people really struggle. This isn't for me. And because you actually have to invent everything. And for me as an entrepreneur, that's the fun part.
That's what you enjoy.
I enjoy inventing things. It's fun. And for any problem or any idea of what you want to go, you can figure out how to get there. But you have to take a step back and go by it step by step. You have to take it a step at a time.
Yeah, I love that. So I guess on that note, here you are. How do you scratch that itch and continue to have that passion and drive and execute on it that you just, described? How do you do that? What are you doing now?
Well, so the thing that I love about now is I don't have a 24/7 job, which I kind of appreciate.
Sweet, I'm in the same spot. I love it. Sorry, Elizabeth.
I'm a moonlighter. I'm your side gig spot that you were in before.
I'm loving not being on that, treadmill right now.
Yes.
I'm with you.
And so that means that whatever projects I do, it's by choice.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
It's varied over time. I'm on 3 boards, and once again, all of them are they're kind of startup boards. AI for All is looking at the next generation of AI leadership.
Cool.
The Command It, which is the Center for Minorities and People with Disabilities, is working with, people who are Black, Hispanic, Indigenous, or people with disabilities. Those are their 4 target groups. But the woman who runs it is Valerie Taylor, and the Command It is based on, the model is based on Anita Borg, and they have something called the Tapia Celebration of Diversity in Computing, which is based on Grace Hopper. And so these are startup organizations that are trying to change the future. I'm also on a small board called Power and Systems, which does organizational development. But I enjoy working with those people. And then, to be honest, the last year it's been the book. So
the book. Let's just pause there. Just the book. What is the book? All right, when is it being released? Do you have a title? How can we buy it? All the things we need to figure out. All of this. That would be great.
This isn't your first time being part of a book, right? That you mentioned this briefly earlier.
Yeah, I got it up on the shelf. I need to go get it.
Part of Nevertheless, she persisted with Pratima Rao Gluckman. So that was an amazing moment.
I'm just gonna get it.
You're gonna show it. Hey, and who else was in there? So, obviously, you're a little familiar, but is this another one of those entrepreneurial territories where you're writing your own book, maybe you have a ghostwriter. Like, what does this look like?
Yeah, we were both in this book. Pratima, you got to everybody buy this book, right?
It's a great book.
It's a great book. There's so many great stories. Every chapter is a different woman, right?
And I love the title.
Yes,
Yep, you get this. You got this.
So
Oh, that's
empowering.
yeah.
I love this book because, I mean, I got to know Erica. I got to know Pratima and a few other people that have been, I mean, it's been wonderful to make connections. I've been in a few different books. I mean, there's been 3 other books that are, my story was part of a number of different stories that were part of this book. And that's been fun. And it's so important, I mean, to have stories for the next generation. The book that I write, that I am about ready to release, it's being published by Harvard Business Review. So it's
nice.
So it's a very different book than something like this, which are more about stories. It's about how do you create an organizational culture that's both innovative and inclusive. And I interviewed 47 people. A lot of them were executives. Erica is in the book, for example. And
Did I know that? I know we talked, but
You did.
I know I feel really cool.
Yeah.
so it's been an interesting process because I have to. I mean, the publisher has been very rigid about not asking for approvals for a particular coverage until we have a final.
Oh, got it.
Final,
Okay.
so
That explains those details.
That's so right now. So you expect to see
On
some
it.
copy about you and the ways in which you're represented in the book. And
Thank you. I'm gonna like cry or something.
And you obviously are part of the stories that are being told, right? It's your narrative plus others.
yes, and it's about. I mean, there's, like I said, there's a lot of stories, and they're both executives and the students. I mean, young people that are starting out in their career, which really talks about how you create, participate in what's your experience. And so, but it's not chapters on different people. It's about how do you create a culture of courage, for example, that where all of the people who work in your organization show courage. How do you encourage courage?
How do you do that?
Yeah, this is your
No,
5 C's, 6
Yeah, is
C's
that what it is?
model. I know you've got.
C's.
I'm going to test myself here really quick. I think you've got your courage, confidence, your communication, very important.
Yeah.
Was it curiosity
Ooh.
and creativity?
Right.
What's
and
number
the,
6?
And the 6 is community.
Community.
Of
Whoa,
course,
that's
alone.
bad.
Yeah, you have to have that.
I mean, and that's something I added at the towards the end because I thought, well, yeah, duh.
Bring
What
it
a
all
like
together.
big portion of your career where you spent most of your time on. Yeah, we should talk about that.
but it's about not just showing courage yourself, but about creating cultures where courage shows through.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, certainly taking risks has been an important part of my story. And if you have a team, and especially if you have a team where there's some people who are the onlys or that they're one of a few, it can feel very daunting to take risks at that time. But you as the leader have the perfect opportunity to create an environment where you encourage people to take risks and to acknowledge them when they do take risks. And perhaps most importantly, when you fail.
Yeah.
Which is part of taking risks. You still celebrate the fact that you took
tried.
risks.
You learned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you got something from it.
Yeah.
It's not for nothing, right?
Right.
Yeah. Or else you're going to be too afraid and you won't take any and you won't have those wins to talk about.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it actually starts with creativity. So what's changed since the last time we talked is I've moved creativity up front because that's what, this Silicon Valley where we live, that's what it's about, is creativity. How do you nurture your team to be creative? Because most companies, they actually just give you goals, and it's really about following the current plan. It's not necessarily about showing creativity, because creativity means that there's conflict. And so you've got to be able to create an environment where there's conflict, which also results in creativity.
Healthy
I love
conflict
that. Yeah,
is
yeah,
a good thing.
Yeah, that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're just going to be doing what someone tells you to do, I mean, where are you going to find that innovation?
Challenge the
Absolutely not.
status quo.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the innovation would be
Yeah,
lost.
it
if
would
you
be
don't
totally lost, and
allow your
everybody has
teams
a
to do that.
different perspective to bring. Absolutely, that's smart. I love that you're starting with creativity.
That is
Okay.
And then courage, of course, the ability to take risks, and not just, I mean, I certainly have a career where I took some important risks. I took over a nonprofit that I wasn't even sure if they were going to survive. But how do you help your team to take risks? That's really important.
You're leading by example. That's a starting point.
That's a starting
so
point.
That's good.
That is a starting point.
Yeah.
And so create, and then, I mean, communication is all about both creativity and courage. The way that you manifest itself is through communication. You have to be able to speak up. When you take a risk, it's about speaking up and saying, I want this.
And that is so hard. It's so much easier said than done. But like, and the bigger the environment, the more you feel less inclusive. Like you're just gonna be quiet like a mouse and not say anything.
Right.
It's so hard.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you do? Yeah. How do you do that and create those environments? I mean,
well, I have this friend named Erica who decided that she was that she really wanted to take on this new position. And so she reached out and she talked to some of the leaders at her company and she tried to find out what was possible. And then she made a pitch to her boss. And I do think that that's a great example of how the courage to take those risks. And it's a great example.
thank you.
And
I might have got some encouragement for this woman named Telle, just in my career as well, and give me that confidence.
That's
but
the
it's scary.
confidence piece,
And it's scary, and it is crazy because no one wants to be rejected. And then, but what's the worst thing that can happen? They say no, but for sure, if you don't ask, it's definitely not going. Definitely no there. So
confidence is an interesting one because you really, I mean, in the world that we live in, people are recognized because of the confidence that they demonstrate. And particularly women have a very challenging time demonstrating those confidence. And in fact, there's some interesting research that shows that even women who feel confident are perceived as not being confident. So there's a lot of cultural norms about women and feeling confident.
That's true. It matters how you show up, no matter what, how you're feeling, and what you say and what you do. I think probably what is also helpful when you have those folks that have your back, right? I know every time I personally have been scared or wanted to ask for that thing, I had to talk to a whole bunch of other people and be like, are you sure? Is this going to make sense? Is this okay? And just knowing that someone else will have your back in those conversations when you're not in the room, you ask for that. I just gave that advice to some other woman just yesterday, just knowing, it's almost like your networking strategy within your company, right? That you have to get those people on your board too. And so it's even scarier if you don't have that personally.
Right.
Yeah, because having people believe in you, that builds up your confidence even more because you have a tendency to not really believe in yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, and as you think about creating a culture of confidence, it's really, you're in this team meeting and encouraging people to speak up is one way that you can encourage confidence.
Call on them. I remember you also mentioning that. You call on them because guess what? Now you called on them. Guess what they have to do?
They have to talk.
Yeah. Or make the space when you can tell they have something to share, but they're not quite there yet to just outright say it. Stop the room and say, I think they have something that they'd like to contribute to the conversation.
Right. And great leaders, people who are creating an inclusive culture, that's what they do. So they really ensure that everybody has a chance to speak up, to express their ideas. And and then over time, as you're talking about, Erica, you can build your own confidence. When you go into the room and you pitch an idea, these 5 other people have already supported it. And that makes a huge difference.
It really does.
It does. And I love your point on leaders. Like those are good leaders. Those are ones that are reading the room constantly because the fact is, when you have that self-doubt that you were talking about too, and that lack of confidence, it's not really necessarily always about us. It's like an equitable institution of how this world has been built for so many years, and like breaking through all of that is hard. But yeah, I love it. I don't know. I love it. I want to get in a meeting. I haven't been in a meeting in a long time. We need to figure this out.
We meet
We need
all
to
the
exercise.
time.
Well, we meet all the time, but it's been a little while since I've been in a corporate meeting. It's like you have to kind of test those skills every single time.
I will say, I just want to take a moment and do just a test to your leadership style is something that I would like to emulate one day. And I've learned that like the inclusivity piece and what you talk about is bringing people into the conversation and making sure the voices in the room are heard. When I first joined LinkedIn, I came from healthcare administration into tech, and it was a whole new world for me. And she was the founder of Women in Tech at the organization and brought me along into the meeting so I could kind of listen and learn and dive in a bit. But I felt like the fly on the wall. I'm just here for conversation and understanding where these women's struggles are and what they're trying to do to make a change and make a difference. And she goes, no, you're not just going to sit in the room. You need to be contributing and having a part of the conversation.
Doing something.
You need to do something. So I started kind of taking hold of some things that I'm more passionate about, like the operations side, running events and things. And I remember being in one of my very first meetings for your Women Connect events that you spearheaded. And you said, you have a perspective. I want to hear what you have to say about the agenda. Something as simple as that. And just calling someone out and saying, you have a perspective. Gives them the confidence to say, I really do. And it was in here and I was holding it in.
She has a lot to say, just so we're clear.
Yeah, now I'm just talking like nobody's business. But it took that person to kind of break me out of my shell. And that's the power of a leader who understands that, and they have the compassion that comes along with it.
Yes, and so to go full circle about what we talked about earlier about the changes in DEI, no, I mean, I'm not happy about that they're all being dismantled.
Okay, I'm just glad you said that.
Okay.
I'm not happy either.
But at the same time, what is more important is that the leaders who are creating this next generation of products are inclusive.
Yeah.
And that they are choosing from a wide variety of people within their organization and giving them an opportunity. And having a program on the side is not as impactful as having them assign you to take a leadership role in the next generation product.
Yeah. It should be an everyday thing, not just a side project or
an operating model, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
I often think of like the ERGs at companies as a way to build up the muscles. So you get together with people who have similarities to you. Not so much that you can just talk to each other, but that when you go into your boss's office and pitch your idea, you've built up that muscle. And maybe those 5 people that you've met through the ERG support you.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Like literally right now, I'm the global co-chair for women at LinkedIn for the ERG.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
And I can't even tell you how much I've learned just from my partnership with my global co-chair. She's based in Paris. She's in the sales organization. So we're very separate worlds, literally, geographically and within the company. But we're both working on different things in our career journey and our leadership journey. And we've taken things from each other that have made both of us better for it and stronger. And I do have those types of conversations when it's like, I have this idea and I don't really know the best way to approach it or deliver it. And she'll sit down with me for 30 minutes and we'll use our one-on-one time talking about how to set each other up for success for a simple conversation.
That's great.
Right? Just to be intentional about how you have that. So yeah, the power of those programs, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. That's really where it is the growth of the individuals to move the needle in their leadership journey. But it needs to be ingrained in the leadership as it is in order to have an impact on how your teams are built and the influence on your products.
Yeah, and you're talking basically about community, which is one of your C's. I mean, that's how you feel that you have this group that supports you. And sometimes you just need to hash it out. Just have that conversation. Take that walk. Be like, hey, how does this feel? How does it sound? Just need a soundboard. Everybody needs it. Everybody does.
I mean, I do think that finding your group of people is really important. I mean, when I first moved to the Bay Area, so this was a long time ago, but there was a group out of Stanford, a women's organization out of Stanford Computer Science, and they were pretty strong. I mean, you've seen some of the statistics about mid-'80s that there was more women in computer science than in subsequent years.
Yep.
And so those women I met at Stanford are still friends today. And it was a group of women where I could go. I didn't work with any of them, but it was a place to go that I could, figure out what I wanted to do next.
Yeah. Did you see a lot of them stay in the computer technology field? They
why? Yeah. Why?
Do they
why do you think that is?
mothers, stay-at-home mothers? Because that's a very important role. So very admirable.
Actually, the ones, the dinner that I'm having tonight is with some women from that group, and that none of them are doing technology anymore.
Really?
One of them was a Stanford professor. Then she left and became a therapist.
Maybe that's the requirement after you've dealt with all this stuff. Therapy. Yes, I think that probably makes a ton of sense.
One became an engineering executive and then retired, and one is very active in politics. But it's
that's so cool.
Important.
But the women of that generation, almost everybody no longer works in technology. I have a few artist friends. So they went on, and I believe it's because they didn't feel comfortable in the culture of technology. That really, this is not where I belong, and it's more unconscious than conscious. Because most of them loved the work that they were doing at one time.
Is that the book? Just an honest question. Is that the book Brotopia? Is that kind of covering what that?
Brotopia is a great book.
I got that one too there.
I got that gifted to me when I started at LinkedIn.
So good.
And I think that's what it's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
very
much focused on the startup world in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And the part, Emily, the chapter I love is where she talks about meritocracy, because there are just a lot of male leaders in this area that truly believe there's a meritocracy, but the women don't. No, it doesn't feel like a meritocracy. And so there's a disconnect about what that looks like.
Yeah.
And that's really another lens on what I'm saying, is that you have to be able to say what you want to do, to take risks, to be encouraged to take risks.
And be in the right environment to do that too. Yeah. I mean, if you're not, you could do all the things you just said. And then if you're in the wrong environment, like,
you have to feel safe to do that.
Yeah.
So no, thank you, Telle, for joining us today. Just a reminder to our audience, Telle is going to be releasing a book in May of 2025. And so keep an eye out for that. We'll help kind of promote and remind you all, because you definitely want to buy it and not miss out on those stories. But anything else that you want to add?
Tell us about the book.
It's a book about creating a culture that's innovative and inclusive.
Yeah.
Because, technology is changing our lives. It's part of all of our future. And it's something that we really want to have women at the table creating that technology, not just using that technology, but creating the technology. And we need to figure out how to do that.
Right.
And I do think that people who are leading organizations need to understand how to be more inclusive. And the good news is that there are lots of people who really do understand how to do this. And as you think about your own journey, it's really important to think about your own decisions. And are you going places that are enhancing your ability to do what you want to do? And so
I can't wait. I can't wait to read it. It's going to be great.
Can you give us any other teasers? Want more teasers?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just not enough. I need more.
Yeah.
What else is it about?
It's like any project. We've both been involved with projects. It's a long-term commitment. And part of that is that I had 47 interviews, and I talked to these people, and their ideas are in there. So I need to make sure that they're on board with how I've included that before I talk about it more extensively. I do think that one of the people is Erica. I think that I've talked already about how she asked for what she wanted and how unique that was. And it's all too uncommon. But also creating community. I mean, I think that part of what you did was create a community at LinkedIn. But at least what I saw with the Women Connect is it was larger than LinkedIn. It was you worked with a lot of different organizations, and people just benefited greatly by coming together.
Yeah, it was internal and external. We were partners on that, 100% running it. And you came to our speaker series and also live on LinkedIn. That's still out there, but I mean, it's the only way that we've been able, I think, giving us that courage to move forward, which is exactly what some of your book is about. So
well, and I think one of your questions was about stories. So about some of the stories, especially with Grace Hopper. But there's a young woman who I just talked to. She came to Grace Hopper when she was a freshman. She was at a university that supported their students attending Grace Hopper, and in fact, this is Gloria Townsend just released a book, Women in ACM, about women who were participating at ACM. And so she encouraged Ashley to come to the conference. And for the first time, Ashley said, yes, this is what I want to do. You know, that moment where you say, this really is where I belong? That happened to her. So she studied computer science at DePauw. When she was towards the end of her junior year, she came back as she was trying to figure out what she wanted to do next. And she had the chance to hear from all these different women in all kinds of different fields, and ended up going to Brown, getting a PhD at the intersection between computer science and cancer research. And graduated. She's now at Microsoft Research, and just about ready to have a baby. But this was part of her journey about seeing what was possible and meeting examples about what this might look like. And that is the opportunity for communities, is to be able to find role models that help inform what you want to do.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about all the time is the importance of paying it forward. And it sounds like you've been doing just that with these types of conversations with Ashley and many other women. So if there was another person, or maybe it is Ashley, but if there's someone that you feel you would like to elevate in this moment, bring them to light, and maybe they'll be a guest on our podcast in the future.
It's hard for me to choose one person. I mean,
you could give us a whole list.
So many,
Ashley was the person that came to mind.
Yeah.
But there are there's these women who are changing the face of technology, and that I am honored to meet. Like Aisha Evans is the CEO of Zoox, and she was a senior executive at Intel and is really making a difference. I mean, she's looking at transportation. She wants people moving. Diane Bryant, who is one of my inspirations, she really made a change while at Intel in terms of sponsoring the next generation of women coming up. And she's now CEO at a company that's doing health tech and technology. Another story from Grace Hopper was Raquel Romano. So she has a PhD from MIT, and she worked in technology. She worked at Google for a number of years in a number of different technology roles. She was very resistant to going to Grace Hopper because it was singling her out as a woman. This is a very common...
When was this?
2006-ish.
Okay. Interesting.
And finally came, and she and 5 other women created something called the Latinas in Computing. And they came together, and they still mentor young women coming up. They found women who they wanted to recommend for awards, and it just made such a difference for her to find her community.
Wow.
So
that's great.
Some of the women.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's hard for me to say just one.
Yeah.
There's more.
Yeah.
That's the beauty, though, of building your network and the community that you've so successfully created, is you have so many women that you can be inspired by and be proud of, right? Of the work that they're doing.
Yes. I mean, and one of my conscious choices I talked about the boards that I'm on, but I also mentor young people. I mean, a number of people who I try and help them find their own dream. And it's very rewarding.
Anyone who has you as a mentor is a very
know.
lucky woman. I will just say that right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Might be hitting you up on some mentor moments for sure.
Erica, I mean, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, you heard it live here, recorded, just so we're clear.
She said yes.
She said yes.
Well, we've already had one conversation about the publishing industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a lunchtime
Here's how that works.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys going to write a book?
Awesome.
You know what we've learned from you? You say yes. We're just going to figure out the how and the when. There you go.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, but I, to be honest, I started looking into it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work.
Daunting.
It was very daunting.
Yeah.
It is so much work, and so have to be in that phase of, that is the thing that you're working on. I'd imagine. I don't know. I have a lot of questions about.
I mean,
what that
yours
would
is
look
a
like.
labor of love. You said for
It
years
is
you've
a
been working
labor
on
of
it.
love,
So
and it's. I really did just say I'm going to start,
yeah.
and I sat down and I started putting together interviews, and I started going down the path. I had no idea how much work it was when I started, and it unfolded. But like always happens, there were people that came in that had suggestions, that had ideas, that were knowledgeable about the publishing industry, about what works, and I listened to a lot of people who supported me.
I have a question that might be crazy, but in order to write a book, do you have to be a great writer? I'm just saying, because I'm an engineer. I'm not really good at spelling, doing any of those things. Yeah. Do you have to be a good writer?
No.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of tools. There's online tools that can help you with writing. So there's that, but there's also the publishing industry understands that a lot of the people generating content aren't necessarily writers.
Yeah.
So they have ways to work with you.
I wonder with AI how that's also going to change.
It's promising.
AI is we'll see how it goes. Right now, AI can help you. I
use it all the time to write any post but then you still use your own wording. But
to give you some suggestions that you can then incorporate.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
I've stayed somewhat far away because I didn't want, I had a book that was due and I didn't want any way for it to be seen as having AI as part of it. But it also didn't come out till it was fairly late in the process. But for posts and ideas, it's a great tool.
Yeah.
But I love what you said. You just started.
You just start.
You know, I used to have a whiteboard actually at my desk with so many projects and ideas and being in my band and all these things all at once, and I'd get overwhelmed. But I'd look at my whiteboard and it said, just start. Like, okay, let me pick the thing. I'm just going to start on that right now and move forward. So I love that mentality.
Well, and in fact, as an entrepreneur, that's what it's about, is this step by step. I went to Nepal a number of years ago. This was in the mid-90s, and I had always wanted to go there. This was one of those life dreams, and I went to the base camp of Mount Everest, and we went up to 18,000 feet and saw these beautiful country. And you couldn't just walk up to 18,000 feet. It was carefully organized so that you were increasing your height about 1,000 feet per day. And so over the course of 20 days, we were at 18,000 feet. And it really is about step by step. Everything that you do, if you have a vision of where you want to go, if you can start and then just keep going and do it gradually, you can get there. I really believe that.
I love that. That's so
you give me chills.
All right, let's
we got this.
I love it. Well, thank you, Telle. It's been an honor. Obviously, being who you are and us having the moment that we've just had with you today is just so special. And I know near and dear to your heart, specifically as a fangirl.
I love you. I'm going to tell you, I love you. You've encouraged my life of who I am. And I'm just like, I'm incredibly grateful for you. And to be here in this room, in my home is just never thought in a million years something like this would happen. So keep doing and starting and doing all the things you're doing, because we need you so much in every step. So thank you.
Well, HumanizeHer, this is your vision of what you want to do. And I'm here to tell you that it is needed. So, you should really listen to yourself about what you want to do and keep making it a reality. And I'm here to help, in any way that I can.
Thank you. We need it.
That.
We need it. Yeah. we're
Takes
just
a village.
It takes a village and a community and wise people. So thank you.
All right.
All right.
And I think that's a wrap. We'll
That's
see
a
you next time.
All right. We cannot end without having the biggest gratitude to thank those that are behind the scenes. Alex Sully, our creative director and producer. Becky Davis, our talented director of photography. Kristen West, our brilliant brand and design expert. And of course, thanks to all of you for making our vision of Humanize Her come to life.